Greetings, ladies and gents, and welcome to this latest edition of Tales from Outer Space, where I take stories from across the internet and read them for your entertainment. This particular story is called A Deal is a Deal, written by Ender's Game 69. So what? You're just gonna let us harvest it? I still remember those words. Yes, the human answered. Sort of. We will do the harvesting, but you will get the resources. The deal is simple. You form a partnership with us, and we will only trade this resource to you. However, you must ensure absolutely no other species gets into our solar system, and you must trade with us for what we require. Planetary modification technology, FTL drives, and so on. You must open schools here on Earth to teach our people the things you know. You can keep all other forms of payment. We'll pay our own workers. All you have to do is work to maintain your exclusive access. As long as you succeed, you will have access to the resources you desire. But if you fail, that trade right vanishes. We will protect your teachers and civilians here from harm, but we reserve the right to further trade on our own. I should have understood what this meant. I didn't. Nobody did. It was just such a sweet deal. Unlimited exclusive access to the Zanari mineral deposits, not even having to fight or mine for ourselves, and all we had to do was help out the humans where they were lacking and keep everyone else at bay. For 3 years, this worked great. Our armadas were second to none, and our finest educators moved to Earth to teach advanced physics, chemistry, nuclear science, and so much more. Planetary mod tech was so common it was considered almost worthless to us. And we profited enormously by fighting everybody else, driving the others back until the war widened, and we found that while we were second to none, we were second to all. The trade in Zanari was ground to a halt when we were driven from the system. True to their word, the Broccoli ships replaced ours over Earth. The humans put our teachers and citizens into safe zones. And they made the same offer to the Broccoli government that they made to us. But they first had to prove themselves by fending off retaliation. This proving themselves was a 6-month campaign while the humans promised that they were continuing to harvest Zanari for sale, and the cost of the stuff shot up to heights undreamt of, and the Broccoli managed to negotiate a few treaties distributing Zanari minerals to allied states, creating a coalition to defend Earth, then depositing their own scientists and trading their own tech to their human partners. This partnership then went as ours did, with human technology developing replicators, transporters, advanced agrarian genetics, and they grew rich off the Zanari trade, rich in knowledge and rich in living capital. That is to say, expertise in various fields. The Broccoli Alliance held on to the Sol system for 5 years, profiting enormously when Earth started trading increased Zanari material beyond their promised quantity, in exchange for additional material resources, which they used to build a space station of enormous size to handle colony ships that were starting to settle the modified worlds and moons of their system. When the Jack and Amalgam threw out the Broccoli, they in turn received the same deal, trading ship construction technology, weapons, shields, and robotics for all of the precious Zanari. So it went. Every few years, devastating wars would result in one power being thrown out, striking a bargain with the humans for easy access, security, and knowledge, and occasionally extra resources when needed. And while we tore ourselves apart, humanity continued to expand. Their other planets began to strike trade deals, but required, above all else, the security of their space, with the understanding that anyone who armed one of their planets would be cut off from Zanari access entirely. Fighting for it would be too costly, even if successful, and so the crude colony worlds were ignored. Why not ignore them? After all, they were weak, small, low-population places, and they didn't have resources we didn't already have access to. So, they were but blips on a radar as Earth colonies went from 1 to 5 to 20 to 100 to 1,000, until they had small communities on enough planets that, if they were developed, they would have rivaled or surpassed all other peoples. Within 100 years, they had a fleet to back up the defense of their world, but still, we did not see what they were doing. We were too used to thinking of them as weak backwater with one useful resource, and they kept acting like it. Wreckage from 10,000 battles floated about their solar system, with salvage crews from Earth clearing it out and harvesting technology from us, while we all thought, they won't understand it. And still they said, secure our system, and we will trade with you. Nobody realized their scientists had become our equals. They eventually changed their mining methods, but nobody realized that they were no longer needed to mine. They found a way to replicate the stuff and hid it underground, so that it seemed like it was still mining. And nobody realized how crushingly effective their colony process was. They would fertilize millions of eggs, raise them, and ship them with 10,000 colonists, and each family would raise 5 offspring. Then those would do the same, and all the while automated machines would build and establish planned-out cities. Thus, in a mere 200 years, their colonies were the equal of anyone else's. I still think back to that dark day, when humans sculled us all so badly. Our strength, billions of lives, millions of ships was spent, wasting fighting one another, and then it was just over. I still remember that last triumph. The Kabankari had an alliance of 30 species and drove out the previous alliance of 20 or so, and Earth's transmissions went out to them and all the others. The old way is done. There will be no more fighting. We will trade with whom we please, power down your weapons, and surrender to the Terran Imperium. Thousands of space stations' weapons came online across the galaxy, and the fleets of Earth's military, which had always evidently run at only an eighth of their real power, powered up to their full maximum strength. It was with horror that the galaxy understood that they fed a baby giant. We were Kronos, and they were Zeus. The time had come for them to slay their father, and we had given them the power to do it. What else could we do but yield? Our blood was spilled in such quantities for so long that we only realized how weak we had become when faced with an overwhelming strength from the people that we once thought to conquer with ease. And now, here we were. The dominion of man had begun. All and any of us could do was hope that they treated us better, and we treated each other. End of story. Story number 2. Field Repairs, written by Monarch 357. The Sevastopol was not a British ship. Of course, no human ships were. The creature comforts of a pleasant environment were less important than efficiency to the Terran military. But the Sevastopol was on another level. Its shell was ragged and aged, exposed to the elements of both space travel and ship-to-ship combat. Spinal rail cannons sat like afterthoughts between auto-burst turrets, missile tubes shoved asymmetrically onto aft gunneries. The inside was worse. Signs of struggle were patched hastily by welders and adhesive, while plasma burns were covered with thin layers of paint. The Verdani technician clearly didn't like what he saw. "What in the name of light is this? This is tin can, has more repair cord and cheap steel than ship shell and wiring." He banged on a flimsy wall with his hammer, grasped between his forelegs, and dented easily, and produced a lasting ring. "Junk! It's all junk!" "It works, doesn't it?" quipped a human engineer. "I've served on this, tin can, as you put it, for a decade. It's economical." The tall mantis head sank in a manner akin to a human facepalm. "Economics doesn't matter when it's a damn destroyer's worth more than your entire family." The technician's sinking head rose again when he heard the steps of another engineer. Observing the newly dented wall, she unhooked a spool of repair cord and loaded it into a tool, and the technician's focus returned to his adversary. You can fix years' worth of damage with a welder. His head shook, having moved from anger to simple disappointment. The engineer behind him pulled out her welder and began to work. By the time he turned to watch her again, a layer of cooling metal filled in the dent. Satisfied, she hammered it flat before covering in a quick coat of paint. The technician's emotions flared again. "That is what you consider repairing? No fecking wonder it all looks like garbage." "Relax. That wall isn't load-bearing, and it doesn't have any wires or pipes running through it. We do have some standards for those." The human beckoned at the Verdani technician to follow, intending to show him the rest of the ship. Their destination was one of the numerous gunneries aboard. Compared to the catastrophe that composed the rest of the ship, those rooms could fit into a luxury liner. Sensor readouts sat on a high-quality monitors next to turret scopes displaying range, ammunition, and more information. Loader bays sat open, racks dented, with over-caliber ammunition somehow still functioning. It was a room of contrasts, with tens of thousands of credits in computational systems, programming channels, and analysis banks interspersed between desks made from welded sheets of scrap metal. I don't have anything new to say. It all looks like shit, and I'm astounded that you're still allowed to fly, the technician commented. It functions, doesn't it? The engineer said. I've put the ship back together before. It's not that bad if you know where everything is. You literally have loose 40 mil on the floor, the Vidani answered, gesturing towards microshells spilling out of open ammo crates. And I know where that is. It's not like we use much 40 mil anyway, she said, scooping the loose shells back into the crate and hefting it back towards the point defense gun's loader. The technician had wanted to ignore it, but his eyes shifted to the walls anyway. They were layered in quickseal foam with a coat of repricord, and he was convinced that any moment it would explosively decompress. Like what you see? The engineer asked. No. Okay, it does look terrible, but I've run the numbers. It's a cross-hatched repair cord pattern glued with a quick seal, so it is actually really stable. I want to replace it with actual steel at some point, but we haven't had the time to do it in dock yet. It would take me too long to list everything wrong with what you just said, so I'll just ask one thing. What fucking psychopath would want to repair this ship? Asked the Vidani. A human one. End of story. I'd quickly like to thank the T5 channel members and patrons, Cam Maxwell, Casper Arnholtz, Bushmaster 177, Lord Azrakal, Ambrose Cattell, Quantum Wednesday, Dragzoon WRE, and Blueberry Cat. Thank you very much for the support. It is super appreciated.